All right, here we go. And about 5 minutes ago, I didn't know if we were going to make it on. I was stuck in traffic. I was texting the guests. I was like, I promise I'll be there because I did not want to miss this opportunity to talk to this impactful educator. And as we kick off Stronger Together, as we do each week, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you to our sponsors, Bulb and Swivel, because without your work as solution providers supporting this work and supporting educators, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do, stay connected, and support students. So I am super thrilled to have this guest on. And I was watching the opening, and I've been to FETC a few times, and 2 years ago in Miami, I feel like we were in the same place like multiple times. I see pictures that she posted. I'm like, I was there, and somehow we didn't get a chance to meet. So 2 years in the making. I am so thrilled to welcome in Mandy Froehlich to Strong Together. So thank you for jumping on tonight. Thank you for not being super nervous at 5 minutes before you didn't see me. 2 minutes before you didn't see me. Here, 2 minutes.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for having me on. And I know I was watching your opening. I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss conferences so much. But we've been like, what's that saying? Like, passing in the night or ships in the wind.
Yeah,
I don't even know. Whatever.
I think I took a picture with a few, Kristen Nan, Rachel Poof, and then I look over and there's a picture posted of the two of you. I was like, I think I was right there. I really do.
I'm probably in the background of some of your pictures if you look back.
That'd be funny. Kind of just like, where are they? Where's Waldo of it?
Yeah.
For sure.
No kidding.
So I've had the pleasure of seeing your work and seeing you impact education. But for those out there who have not, I would love for you to share your journey in the work that you do in the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was an elementary educator and then a tech integrator and a director of innovation and technology. And so I have kind of a tech side that I've always been very passionate about and I love. And I always feel like that's my roots a little bit. And then when the reason I left the classroom was because I was a burnt out teacher and I was looking to try to get out of the classroom and took the tech integrator position. And so from there, I really had to wrap my mind around what had to happen in order to heal, in order to really love my job again. And so that has brought on a piece of what brought on the educator mental health stuff. Also just in understanding my own personal things that I needed to heal from trauma in my past and things like that. And how I just was so tired of being the person who felt different and weird all the time, you know. And so that's sort of where my passion area is. And I talk a lot about mental health. And so those two things have made me perfect for pandemics. And, you know, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, and I'd say not just perfect for pandemics, because one, we don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
And two, we don't want that the only time that you say that you're perfect for, because the work that you do is incredibly impactful. And so talk about, I was actually just having dinner with a friend of mine tonight who was talking about mental health and her work. And how do you get into that as an early educator? And what advice would you give to newer teachers in the profession who've had to work through this kind of pandemic, their own insecurities in entering the profession in a way that we would have never expected?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. And when I was in the middle of the pandemic and I was presenting the one time on educator mental health and just how to try to find some sort of just like personal sustainability for yourself throughout the pandemic, I actually had a new teacher. She stayed on afterward and she said to me, I cry every day. Like, is this normal? And I said, oh, honey, it's not normal. I promise, like, this is not what you got into education for. I promise it gets better. And it's such a rough transition for those, you know, that had, like, remember when you got your first classroom?
Oh, and you
walked into it for the first time.
You went to the teacher store. You were psyched, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Posters up.
You signed that contract. You ran to the teacher store. You bought all of the stuff, especially elementary teachers. You know, all of the cute bulletin board things. And and it feels like kind of a rite of passage for teaching. And there's so many of the new teachers who didn't get something like that. Instead, they were sort of thrown into this chaos that we had.
Right.
And so I don't, I feel like the only thing that I can really tell them is to take care of yourself. Like, it does get better. Like, this is not normal.
Right.
I don't know what normal is exactly yet, but it's not going to be pandemic learning.
No,
We'll
that's a
get
good
back.
thing.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
for
So
sure.
yeah, one of the things I wanted to show, I'm going to throw Mandy's website up here because there's so many great things that we're going to dive into the books, but there's also articles you talk about helping parents feel more comfortable about tech in the pandemic, 4 ways you can fight fatigue, 5 elements to sustain online learning, but not just pandemic articles. You write all about stress busters or tips at home. How did you get into being that educator and then saying, I want to get my voice out there? Because that's sometimes intimidating.
So I've been talking about educator mental health for like roughly 8 years now or something like that. So it's been way before the pandemic. And so I've had the really interesting experience of being able to talk about mental health prior to the pandemic and then learn with everybody else what that meant during the pandemic. And I think that when I started a long time ago talking about it, it came from 2 places. One of them was that I was such an excited first year teacher that people said to me, you're going to burn out. And I said, oh, you can't burn out from something you love so much. And then found out the hard way that you absolutely can burn out from something you love so
Right.
much. And so there was that piece of it. And then there was another piece of dealing with the trauma from my childhood and from growing up and feeling all the time like I needed to hide that in order to be seen as somebody who was capable. I couldn't talk about my depression. I couldn't act like I was anxious. I had to try to sort of stuff down my anxiety, and I usually did it with food, it was a lot of that piece. And then there was also the piece where I was watching things happening around me as an educator that I just felt weren't right. The paraprofessional who was going to the hospital every other day because a student was, beating on her and bit her until she bled and all of those types of things. And, the really dramatic school shooting drills that we were doing, where in Wisconsin they were having police officers come in and shoot at teachers with airsoft guns in some districts.
Wow.
And so there those 3 sort of pieces were the catalyst. And the reason I started talking about it was because I was so tired of nobody talking about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand back anymore and look at some of these things happening and say, this is like, I can't stay quiet anymore. Like, we need to talk about this. And when I started doing that, a lot of people told me to stop talking, that I was going to get people fired, that nobody should be talking about sad teachers. Nobody wanted to hear that teachers had depression. I heard it all. It was not like now where people can just say it and it's okay. So I feel like I've come a long way from that, but it really did just come from a place of, I'm so tired of this not being right.
No, and I can hear that in your voice, your empathy, and someone who, I don't know your past, but seem to have come through stronger and now out supporting others, both in consulting and on your podcast or on your website with blogs. We also are putting out books. You have multiple books here, and I'd love for those who don't know your work, what are really the backbone of the books that you write, and tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, sure. So The Fire Within was probably ignited out of that passion for wanting to, wanting other people to understand that our stories aren't something to be ashamed of, and that there are things that we, when we're wounded, when we're younger, and as we grow and we heal from that, there are things that we learn that we can use to be good teachers. Like, we get these sort of, I joke about them being kind of superpowers, like just different things that we're really adept at because we went through something really difficult and we learned from it. And so the Fire Within is really using narrative to talk about trauma and, and resilience and post-traumatic growth and some of those things, to use it as a catalyst to, I guess, help people feel like they belong, help them feel like they're not different, those types of things. Divergent Edu, I was actually writing in tandem with the Fire Within. And if you ever, like, I know you have your book, but anyone else out there, if you decide to write books, I highly recommend writing 2 in tandem.
That's a good tip.
When you get writer's block or you get tired of one of them, you just move to the other one. And,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it kind of annihilates writer's block. So I was writing them at the same time, and they ended up really going well together because even though that one is about innovation, it's about supporting teachers in building the capacity to be innovative and divergent thinkers. And I don't mean capacity in they are somehow lacking in skills and we need to grow the capacity. I mean capacity in how can we allow them the brain space? How can we take things off their plate? How can we support them?
It's so important, right?
Yeah, to have that, have that piece. And one of the indicators is educator engagement. So how they feel, how emotionally engaged they are with their job. And in Divergent EDU, I have the hierarchy of needs for innovation and divergent thinking, which is what Divergent EDU is based around. And that really, Sarah, you know this. You published both books. Yes. But it really is about supporting educators. And one of the reasons why I feel like we struggled so much in the pandemic was exactly things that are listed in the hierarchy. We were asking teachers to be innovative and divergent thinkers when they weren't actually being supported in the way that they needed to in order to be that. And so I created it before the pandemic, and the pandemic just kind of like proved what I was
well, there you go. And that's great how that happens. And I was actually fortunate enough, and one of the events I was at or did something online to win the Educator Matchbook. And
did you really?
I did. I was psyched, and I had a chance to look through it. And what I really liked about it was that it wasn't a sit and like summer read on the beach. It gave me strategies. It gave me an opportunity to sit down and think. Tell the listeners or viewers a little bit about that book.
Yeah. Educator's Matchbook is based on Reignite the Flames, which was my third book that was based on sort of reasons why teachers disengage. I sort of define disengagement as your emotional attachment to your job, or the lack of the emotional attachment to your job, which is sort of like the catalyst for a lot of attrition right now. And so the Matchbook is a sort of a play off from Reignite the Flames. You don't have to have read that in order to use Matchbook. It's kind of like a journal. You can write in it, but then every so often it has like a mindfulness practice and a resilience practice and things like that. So
so make sure to definitely pick that up, because it was one that I had an opportunity to go through, and actually bought one for a colleague of mine because it allowed you to think, allowed you to pause, and then really get some ideas out and take those ideas and put them into action. And then I want to dive into something I saw over the summer. And it was almost about the same time that Brian Aspinall contacted me to start X Factor Publishing. And I see, and I follow impactful educators like yourself, and I see this logo come flying up. And I'm like, whoa. And I think I actually reached out and was like, that website you created is really cool. Like, and talk about your journey into starting your own company to publish books. And you have a new book coming out that we'll talk about in a minute, but tell us about Divergent EDU.
I've had Divergent EDU for some time, but I redid it used to just be sort of a blog and that was it. And every once in a while I'd throw a link on there to something. And so I redesigned the website and made it a little, thank you, made it a little bit more business-like. I've always been attracted to the Phoenix. I have, my first dog's name was Phoenix. Everything I do is fire. I actually have a Phoenix tattooed on my wrist. Like everything
Sweet.
around me is fire and Phoenixes. Phoenix eye. I'm not sure. So
it all works.
It all works, whatever. So I went with that logo, and I had someone design it for me, and I was really happy with that, and just sort of built it all around there. And you know, it's interesting being a small business owner, and a lot of people miss that. That's what consultants are. They really are. They are small business owners, you know. And so I am, you know, I contract through different places, but I don't work for anybody, and there's benefits and downfalls to that. But I absolutely love everything that I do in my job, and so that has been a really important part to me.
Yeah, and when I saw it this summer, again, it was right around the time that I started to venture into that as well, and it really was inspiring to see others. And I'm never one that shies away from like, oh, someone else is doing it, I don't want to know what they're doing. Oh, it's a competitive. It's never competitive. You know, education's a team sport. We're stronger together, and I appreciate you putting it out there and learning from you. And it's exciting that you have your first book from Divergent Edu coming out. Is this it?
That is it.
Look at that.
Yeah, look how quick you are. I am impressed.
2 minutes to spare. You know, you're like, I got a new book, and I'm like, I think I saw it. So tell us, it's titled The Wonder Healer?
The Wounded Healer.
Wounded Healer?
Yeah. So I'm really, really excited about this, and I've been excited about it for a while, but we're a little bit further into actually writing the book right now, and so I'm just really excited about that. I'm writing this with a friend of mine who is a licensed counselor, and she is one of my favorite people on earth. And she did her dissertation on the wounded healer, and I was reading this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea about this concept. And we started talking through it, and it turned out that like a lot of things that I speak about are about this, but I've just never had a term to put it on, to put on it.
Well, it sounds like your first intro. That when I saw it, I was like, it sounds like you're living your purpose and you're putting it out there. And what can the readers expect from the book?
So the concept of the wounded healer is actually a psychological concept that quite a few, like it's fairly common. And what it is that a lot of times people who get into certain healing type professions, so that would be like doctors, counselors, social workers, teachers, even though we often don't think of ourselves like that, we are.
Sure.
People who get into those professions usually get into them because they themselves somehow have been wounded and in their past, and they want to try to remedy that. They want to do better for people, or you know, something along those lines. And so the idea of the wounded healer is that if you have been wounded, you can only help somebody else heal as much as you have healed. And this applies to counseling, obviously. Like if you were an abused child as a counselor, you would have had to work through healing for that before you could help somebody else with their abuse. But it also works in teaching from the standpoint of if you can only help a student learn how to self-regulate as well as you yourself can self-regulate. And so it's kind of this overarching idea of how the importance of self-awareness and understanding what your wounds are, understanding how you would then heal from those wounds, or ways that you could heal. We have things like a wound map, a healing wound map in the book, and really talk a lot about you know, what wounds are, what healing is, and then like how you need a community kind of an ecosystem of healing to really help you. So that's what that book's about.
Wow. So there's a lot to check out. Make sure to check out all the work. Both, you know, Mandy has her Twitter handle up there, her website's down below. And I'm going to get you out on this. And you've talked a lot about this. You haven't said it explicitly, but talked a lot about partnerships and working together and supporting others. And what does Stronger Together mean to you?
So stronger together means to me that I think a lot of people would say, you know, that we collaborate and we work together and we're stronger together than we are apart, those kinds of things. But I agree with all that, but I would take it one step further and say that stronger together means that we not only accept the people who are just like us, but empower and embrace the people who are not. That stronger together actually means that we have people in our community and in our own ecosystem who challenge us, who don't agree with us, and who maybe don't always feel like we're on the same page, because that challenge and that that pushback is what makes us better. And so it's not only about combining people who are alike, but instead combining the people who are different to make us
Right.
better.
Wonderful. Well, it has been a pleasure to finally somewhat meet you. I do want to make sure we meet in person at an event or something someday. I sincerely wish you all the best with Divergent Edu and the work. I can't wait for the new book coming out. Make sure to pick that up. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Awesome. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Bulb and Swivel, for continuing to support all that we do. Amazing educators like Mandy and so many others that we don't know their names. So make sure to reach out to them and be a part of this, because when we're stronger together, we put we before me, because we are in this together.